Yeah. Oh man, that was not a thumbnail I needed to see. Check, 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 check. 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 Oh no, it's gonna echo forever. Hey, Benny's here. Just want to get one thing. Oh my gosh, Cami, I'm glad you're here to ask. I watched that last night. It was so cool. Especially because it wasn't that long ago that I was at the Dunvegan and at St. Andrews in Scotland with my wife. Okay, I just want to get this posted so I can pin it really quick. What putting mat would I recommend? So this well stroke mat I think is really, really good. There we go. All right, let's do some putting. All the work we've been doing on the stream has definitely been paying off on the golf course, guys, which is super exciting. I felt very, very solid with one notable exception, but that's going to happen. Really, you know, starting the ball on my intended line. And it's a lot of thanks to you guys, right? I get excited to stream, so I come stream and I end up practicing more than I would have otherwise, which is super cool. Okay. How's everybody's Monday? Mondays are tough, especially after a good football weekend. Yeah, also I feel like I like the vibe of the Dunvegan shot because it seems like they all kind of knew, like, we're not entirely sure we should be doing this, but we're going to do it anyway because it's cool and it's a great story and, you know, obviously made awesome content. Nice, really good start. Always a good sign when you make the first one. Hey, Tom, thanks for being here, my dude. Appreciate you saying hi. Get some sleep, wherever you are that's late. Oh, you said Ireland. Very cool. I was just in Ireland, actually. Beautiful country. My wife and I liked it so much, we seriously were asking ourselves if that is a place that we might want to live someday. Oh, which one would you recommend? I really think any of these ball returns. This is a very cheap plastic one. You can find these online pretty easily. You know, I wouldn't spend more than like $30 on it because really the station is back here. This is where you're actually going to improve your skills. That's just, you know, aesthetically, it's nice to put into a, well, it looks like a cup. But the skill that we're developing of starting the ball online, we can do this drill anywhere. I can just bring my Pels tutor and my well stroke mat, and we could just roll balls, you know, into a wall or down a carpet, whatever, right? Hey, Moto King is here. I think I saw Moto King followed me on Instagram recently. Although you might have followed my old account. There's one that's getting deactivated. So yeah, guys, if you're on Instagram, go check me out. Doing some cool stuff there. I like the ability to, you know, with Instagram stories especially, you can do a little more behind the scenes, tell people when stuff is coming, and, you know, you get a better sense of kind of day-to-day what it's like making content and practicing my game, that sort of stuff. I saw that Moto King. Yeah, all I was saying is you got to be careful. There's 2 accounts, and one of them is about to go away on Instagram. Oh, hello, superstar. Hi. I heard you were being crazy. Yeah, you got a crazy look in your eye, don't you? You got a crazy look in your eye. Oh, and your brother came to say hi too? 2 superstars. Wow. Hey, Pig fans here. Milner Music said hi. What's up, my dude? Oh, where in Ireland? We went to Dublin. And in the middle of our trip, we went back to the UK, but we also spent a bunch of time in Galway, which I think was both of our favorites. You know, the west coast of Ireland was where I really enjoyed our time the most. Saw the Cliffs of Moher and did some cool tours. Had some unbelievably good local chocolate. That was a stop along our tour. Jamie wants to know, where in England have you played? I've actually never played golf in England, but I would love to do that someday. There's a ton of good golf. I played golf in Germany. Played golf in Canada. And that might be it, guys, with the exception of the US for me. I live 10 minutes away from Dublin. Very cool. Dim Chase had good stroke. Thanks very much. Appreciate you saying that. Boom. Turns out, guys, when you practice with regularity, your skills stay pretty fresh. Boom. I don't really like you without a beard. It looks weird. Yeah, it looks weird to me too, guys. It's been, you know, what, a day or 2 now, so I've started to forget it, but yeah, no, if it wasn't to raise awareness for men's health, which is something I obviously feel strongly about, you guys hear me talk about, you know, mental health and how important it is for us as men to communicate openly with each other, to be a resource for each other, and to leverage, you know, the really small communities that we all thrive in, right? You know, your friend groups, the people that you're closest with, and using that as a resource for support and to talk openly about mental health stuff. So it felt like I'd be a little bit of a hypocrite if I couldn't, you know, just wear a mustache for 30 days to try and raise some awareness for this stuff. Play Wallasey right next to Royal Liverpool. Okay. Did you play golf in Ireland? I did not. Moto King said, could you go over... Oh, sorry I missed your question. Apologies, guys. If I ever miss your question, just drop it again or say, hey, go look at what I said. It's definitely not intentional. Could you go over the advantage and disadvantage of putting with reverse grip or standard? Absolutely. So from my perspective, and the reason that I putt with the reverse grip, right, and just so we're all on the same page, traditional or standard grip is one where your lead hand is higher on the club, right? Something like this. This is a reverse overlap, right? You can interlock or overlap or 10 finger, right? But all these are variations of, you know, a lead hand on top and trail hand on the bottom. And the reason that I reverse those, right, and I put my lead hand lower is to level out my shoulders when I'm making the stroke. So for me, when I putt, you know, traditionally, I feel like I end up hitting up on the putts quite a bit. But when I change to this left-hand low orientation, it really levels out my shoulders. And I find that my contact with the putter, right, how frequently I'm able to strike the putter and the ball in the center of the face, It really helps with that. One disadvantage for some people is it can be a little bit harder to adjust to speed control, right? You know, it feels a little awkward to learn how to roll the putt with your left hand like here, you know, especially if you're right-handed and you're used to a more right-hand dominant feel. But for me, the benefits definitely outweigh the negatives. So I've really found a lot of success putting with this left-hand low style. And I've done it on and off since college. I can remember putting really well for stretches when I was playing college golf with that left-hand low setup. Your videos are keeping me going. Well, I'm very glad to hear that. And I am more than happy to be a resource and support system for you guys. But hopefully, you know, by watching my content, you also have heard me, you know, talk about the value of other support systems too, you know, like therapy or just even going to the doctor regularly. These are things that there are lots of men who, you know, either blow off or they just think, hey, this is not, you know, that important for me. And if nothing else, I'd like you guys to hear that it is important to take care of yourself. These are just tools, right? The same way you would go to the gym to exercise your body and build bigger muscles. I go to therapy to build tools and combat, you know, things that plague me, like anxiety and depression. But it's just, you know, I'm building up my skill set the same way I'm working here, you know, in living with myself, right? We're all with ourselves all day long. And understanding why you think certain things or behave in certain ways can be really beneficial. Search Wallacey Golf Club, Jamie. I will definitely take a look at that. Pigfan says, I've realized if you don't use a grip, you get more force on your driver. Moto King, thanks for that. I'm going to try it. Very good. Let me know how it goes. Honestly, the left-hand low helped me out immensely with too much power in my putts. From Curly-Haired Kid. There you go. Give it a try, guys. Can really be an effective grip. You know, you've seen guys like Jordan Spieth putt left-hand low forever. Health is number one, 100%. Exactly right, Moto King. I really like the saying, when you have a healthy body, you have thousands of problems. When you are sick, you have one problem. Right? It really, you know, if your body's not well or you can't move through the world comfortably for whatever reason, it really will supersede all those other things, right? You know, the fact that your car is overdue for an oil change will feel much less relevant if, you know, all of a sudden you're sick or, you know, become injured or something. So it's important, guys. We gotta take care of ourselves. We gotta help take care of each other. It is nearly 5 in the afternoon, or evening, I should say. And because of daylight savings time, guys, it is nearly dark. So we are going to have to move up our stream schedule if we're going to be doing work outside, or we'll just get some lights out there, which is another option. Boom, really rolling the rock nicely right now. Do you bring your putter to mini golf places or use the cheap ones for the challenge? Well, it's been a long time since I played mini golf. I'll say that much. I think it's probably been 20 years since I brought my own putter to mini golf. I like the challenge of playing with, you know, the standard ones. Do you think you could pull off the Dunvegan shot? I do. I think I could hit, you know, a gap wedge onto a green, even off of concrete. If you let me recreate the way they did it, right, where you get one off a tee and one off a concrete, I think one of the two, I'll certainly find the putting surface. It's also a massive green. As I learned when I was in Scotland, something that's extremely cool and very was foreign to me as an American is the fact that on Sundays, St. Andrews, the golf course, was just a public park. There was just people walking their kids and dogs, and I'm like, that's the road hole right there. And we just happened to be there, you know, right place, right time on a Sunday. And that was one of the highlights of that visit to St. Andrews for me for sure was, having the opportunity to just walk, see how much undulation there is in that 18th green and what the road hole bunker really looks like. It was fascinating to just, be there as a tourist, but also had the opportunity to walk around a place that I felt like I knew so intimately, having watched tons and tons of golf at St. Andrews and played it in countless video games and watch on TV, obviously. What's your handicap? I'm a 1.3 handicap right now, guys. Tom's got to go. Tom, thanks for being here, my dude. Moto King says, same here. Honestly, when I practice golf in the UK, the weather's so bad I can't get a swing because I sleep on the mud. There's no grass left. Well, it definitely, in poor weather conditions, you got to make sure you have good traction. Tom's in Ireland, so he's like, I know what you mean. Yeah, totally. This is very cool, guys, that we have a international contingent who are all getting to know each other via the stream chat. See you tomorrow, Tom. Thanks for being here. What are you focusing on to lower your handicap as a 1 handicap? So, great question, Bug Eye. Bug Eye Daryl. I'm working on what we're doing right here. So this is start line, making sure that on those short putts inside of 10 feet, I'm really, really solid when it comes to starting the putt where I want, right? Hitting it where I'm aimed, which is what we're doing here. And then over the winter, I'm going to be continuing to work on the driver, assuming that I can get my knee back to a place where I can start doing speed work again. That's what I'm hoping to spend some time on to, maybe add 10 yards this off season with some exercise and mobility work in concert with speed training specifically. Trying to make the driver, even more of a weapon in my game. So that's what I'm focusing on. Moto King says, I saw you went to Wisconsin. I'm about 3 hours away from there. Very cool. Well, next time I'm out there, we'll have to say hi. Hey, Paul's here. What's up, Paul? Thanks for saying hi. I usually have to use cardboard just so I don't slip. Oh, that's a good solution. Definitely get yourself some traction to help with your practice. Boom. Respect from South Korea. Well, thanks for saying hi. One thing that I always wish, when your name pops up, right, but it only shows me the Korean characters, which I will admit I don't understand. So I like to address people, Tom or Paul or Pigfan or Bug-Eyed Daryl, right, who, to say, acknowledge your question or your comment, but I don't know a good way to do that when it only shows the characters. So I usually say something generic like, thank you, my friend from South Korea, which is okay. It's just not as personal as I would like it to be. But yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about doing this, guys, is, the fact that there's, I don't know, 80 or 100 of you watching this right now. And they're from, you guys are from all over the world. And, we've gotten to talk with people from Asia and all over Europe. Basically every continent except for Antarctica, guys. Because I don't think there's any penguins watching me. Maybe there are. One of the coolest trips we've ever done was Antarctica. It's a vicious boat ride. If you don't like boats or you get motion sickness, then, make sure you're up for it. But what a special place. I mean, hard even to describe what it feels like to be in Antarctica and just look out and see these, ice-covered mountains and these giant glaciers and things coming out of the water. Boom. Still getting used to walking by a mirror and only seeing myself without a beard with just this mustache. It takes some getting used to. But you know what, guys? That amount of discomfort is, you know, less than 1% of what somebody who goes through, you know, prostate cancer or testicular cancer would deal with. So we can all suck it up and try to raise awareness for these things. And what does that really mean, right? You know, you see, like I posted this message, you know, we made some content about the men's health stuff in Movember. But it means, you know, talk to your doctor about these things. Say, hey, you know, what can I do to do an at-home screening? How can I learn about risk factors, right? Is there genetic things I need to know about? So there's information you can learn. There's, you know, action you can take, right? If you have concerns or, you know, you're not feeling your best, don't ignore it. Go see a doctor. I know there's a lot of stigma, especially for men, around, you know, taking care of yourself and like, oh, I just have these aches and pains, and we just push it off because, you know, we're supposed to tough through it. You know, I think it's okay to take care of yourself, guys. Hey, Michael's here. The knee, yes, knee is still sore. But making some progress. We completed the MRI and the initial testing and stuff, so hopefully start getting on track with some more answers soon. Michael says, I like the new look. Thanks, Michael. Hey, Garrett's here. What's up, Garrett? How'd your round go yesterday, my guy? I feel like you said you were playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday this weekend, maybe. Boom. Paul says, my doctor is a toolbox. I don't know if that means you don't like your doctor and you're referring to him as a toolbox, or you're saying like, yeah, you know, if I got a sore tooth, I'll go grab a pair of pliers and pull it out. Oh, missed on the left. It's our first miss in quite a while, guys. 72, 75, 75. Great. Moto King says, glad you take your health seriously. Yeah, we all should, guys. Especially your mental health, right? It's easy to know, you know, hey, I got an injury, or my arm hurts, or, you know, my back's sore from playing golf. Like, you can feel those things. It can be harder to be honest with yourself and admit to yourself, hey, maybe I haven't been feeling my best. Maybe I've been a little more depressed or less excited about things recently. I've been going through some of that, you know, and definitely the last couple of weeks have been a lot better. But, you know, I remember 2 weeks ago being in therapy, being like, man, I'm just really apathetic about a lot of stuff. I, you know, don't feel like getting out of bed. I'm really having a hard time, like, you know, pulling my weight around the house. And, you know, those things happen. We all have those moments where we don't feel our best. But ignoring it or acting like it'll go away if you don't do anything about it isn't a good approach either, right? You wouldn't just keep showing up to the golf course without ever practicing and being like, well, I'm going to play, you know, better than yesterday. Well, if you haven't practiced, if you haven't put in the work, you're not going to get the results. So, you know, the fact that I do these things and exercise and go to therapy, and it doesn't make you immune from having hard times, right? But it certainly does build a resiliency and gives you a skill set and some tools for when those moments do come, right? Like if you found yourself in a tough spot on the golf course, you'd be glad that you had practiced some flop shots or some, you know, some giving yourself some different options for escaping that tough spot, right? Who's your favorite YouTuber not golf related? Oh, good question. I guess if you put the Pardon My Take guys as YouTubers, content creators, I really enjoy that podcast. I've been in AWL since the very first episode of that show. I can remember where I was listening to it. Walking to work as an intern in college. Not bad in wind and cold. Yeah, that is good playing, Garrett. Moto King says, anxiety is a daily challenge. Just have to keep putting the work in. Being active helps a lot. It definitely does. I think exercise and movement, even if it's small movement, right? It can be, for me, a few weeks ago, like I said, I couldn't even get out of bed to come into my office to come stretch, which is something I do every day and try to take care of myself and maintain my mobility. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I went out and ran a marathon today. But sometimes even just, moving to a different room and doing some stretching can be a great way to get your mind off of some things for even just a few minutes, right? Really good way to release some endorphins and do some self-care. For some people it's running or cardio. I prefer kind of the mindfulness of yoga. Boom.
Please stop.
You okay?
He's like bathing her, but it's kind of freaking me out.
Buddy, don't be weird. Ah. What's your putting grip? Great question, Michael. So I use the left hand low putting grip, right? So my left hand's further down, and then this, my index finger runs down there. So reverse overlap, but left hand low. And like I was saying earlier, guys, it really helps level out the shoulders so that the strike on my putts has been much more consistent, right? I'm hitting the center of the putter. Face is square. Boom. Hey, Jeremy's here. What's up, Jeremy? Thanks for saying hi. How goes the content and game? Both are good, I think. I shot 2 under my last 9-hole round. It honestly should have been better. I made hit it in the water on a par 5, and then 3-putted from 20 feet were the 2 bogeys I made, and then I made 4 birdies aside from that. So game feels solid, just in time for winter to come and be stuck doing simulator golf until April. Putter's really solid right now, hitting a lot of putts. Very true about that. Need to give yoga a try. Sitting still can be difficult. Totally. Is your grip not centered? What do you mean? It is centered in that I line up with the putter in the center of my stance. Maybe it's not, but it's certainly, that's my intent. Hey, Ashton's here. Oh, how the grip is mounted. I think what you're noticing is this putter has a built-in forward press. So you're exactly right. The angle of the shaft coming out of the grip is not square. It has a 2-degree angle to it, right? So that when you address it, that angle is built in, right? You don't have to push your hands forward. Great eye. Your putting style and stroke are pretty solid. Thanks very much. You guys have seen us do lots and lots of work in here. Oh, missed on the right. Right here on our Pels Tutor since we started the channel and started streaming. We've done lots and lots of work to improve the putting stroke. You could probably go back and find some early ones and it would not look nearly as nice. And that's not because I did, a bunch of 4-hour putting sessions, right? It's just, 20 minutes here, 40 minutes there. It just adds up and compounds over time as long as you're putting in some effort consistently. Tap the likes. Thanks so much, Moto King, gassing up everybody to drop some likes. Boom. I did also want to say thank you guys again for all your support recently on the channel. It's crazy. We're at, in the last 7 days alone, guys, coming up on 500,000 views on the channel in the last week, which is, certainly a material uptick from where we've been, prior to that. So some of that too is me, putting more content out, doing more live streams. So there is a correlation, right? Certainly, but for where we started, I'm really grateful, and just want to say thank you guys for continuing to support me, continuing to engage with the comments and the likes, sharing the videos. Is that grip standard for the reverse grips with the offset? I think this is it's a lab putter thing. It's a lab grip in the way that they design the putters to have that built-in forward press. Left-hand low grip is better than others. It is for me. Again, putting is so personal. I think you got to try a variety of grips to see what you respond best to. But for me, my strike on the greens, how consistently I hit the center of the putter and start my ball on line, does seem to be higher with the left-hand low putting style. So I feel very comfortable with it. But again, you can go find examples of tons and tons of good putters. Some who putt left-hand low, some who putt traditional, right? Tiger made lots and lots of great putts in his career, and he putted pretty much exclusively with that reverse overlap grip. I can remember it was like December one year, he played around with the Varden grip because Steve Stricker convinced him to try it for a few rounds. But my point being, there's lots of different ways to get it done. Remember, the golf ball doesn't know what grip you're using. The golf ball only knows, the impact conditions when the club hits it, where that face is pointed, and how much energy you put into it. So if you can accomplish those objectives, right? Start the ball on line and hit it the right speed, you can use any putter grip you want. I can remember seeing a guy in a tournament who was he was like a +2, +3 handicap, really good player, and he hit all his putts with one hand. He just stood there, one hand, and guess what? He made a lot of putts. I wouldn't start there necessarily. I think somebody like that maybe has some scar tissue on the greens and they're working through stuff. Right? You see Mason Nutt, right? He chips one-handed. The golf ball doesn't care. It just matters about impact. Thanks for explaining it. You're welcome. Benny said hi. Hey, Benny. What's the handy been looking like? We're at 1.3. So back, closer to the range where I've been playing for the last, decade. I got up to like almost to 3. I think I got to like 2.8. And that was the highest I've been in a really long time. Which again, I know I shouldn't complain about because that's still very good golf. But, when you've been a +1 to then see yourself staring at being a 3, I didn't feel great about that. But, some of that's managing an injury. Some of that's having lots of other great things going on in my life that require time and attention. And, that's a great problem to have. Bought a house for the first time in my life this year. So, can't be all things golf all the time, despite our best intentions. Like, what was that sound I really liked recently? Where the guy's like, maybe about 4 minutes. And I said, when, how long since you last thought about golf, right? I know you guys are like me. At least once an hour, I'm like thinking about my swing randomly, or, what kind of practice I need to do to keep getting better. Have you tried praying when you're on the greens? You never know. I haven't tried it, but maybe I should. Hey, Ashton's here. How's the pup doing? The pups are great. They were very silly this afternoon, actually, which was pretty fun. When you have two dogs that live in the same house, and they, for the most part, get along really well and really act like best friends. It's pretty cool. Because no matter how much attention you give your dog, right, the way they interact with you as a human is always going to be different in some way to how they can interact with another dog. And especially, since we got the second one when she was a puppy, they have a pretty cool relationship, which is awesome. Congrats on the house. Thanks so much. When you stroke the ball on the setup position, head floating. Yes, I do lift the putter or hover it right before I take it back. Right? So if you're paying attention, you notice that little move where I take the weight out of the putter. And that's because I don't want my body adjusting to the weight of the putter for the first time once it's coming off the ground, right? By just hovering it for that brief moment, it's really helped me, smooth things out. It's definitely worth a shot. If you've never tried it, it does take some practice to be able to, just very incrementally lift that putter off the ground and get it to stay in that same spot and feel comfortable doing it. It definitely will take some time, but certainly worth a try. Made popular in our generation by none other than Mr. Ricky Fowler, the orange-clad golfer himself. Nice. Really in a nice rhythm, guys. I feel like we haven't, I'm going to jinx myself, obviously, but we haven't been hitting these ball bearings very much, really starting balls on line. Would you recommend a putting mirror? I definitely would. I think it's really important to make sure your setup is consistent. I have one somewhere. I just need to get it out and use it more. That's a good reminder. Maybe I'll try and go find that when we're done here. I hear you. I got two myself. Amazing. What kinds of dogs do you have, Ashton? TDY said hi. Hello. Hovering. Exactly, Leo. What putter did you use before your lab putter? So I used this Spider Tour for a really long time, guys. This is a super cool putter. One of the original models. The first year these came out. So it's got no sight line or dot or anything. Really, really clean on the top. You can see I've had this thing for a long time. It's got some battle scars on it, but super, super, high quality, effective putter. If someone tomorrow said you can't use the lab, they're banned, I would feel very, very comfortable going back to something like this. Boy, it does feel funny, though, after not using it for quite some time. Ricky has a tash. What is a tash, Paul? A French bulldog and an English bulldog. They're best friends. That's amazing. Shane says, still looks good. Yeah, I know. It's held up really well. That putter. Are they both the same length? Yes, they're pretty close. All right, this one, the lab should be 34, and this I think is 34 and a half last time I measured it. So that seems about right. I've always preferred a slightly shorter putter because I tend to be a little bit more bent over and don't need it to go all the way to 35 inches. What do you guys think about this idea? I thought it would be cool to go out and film 9 holes. Oh, that was a bad stroke. I wasn't really paying attention while I was yammering. I think it would be kind of fun to go see how well we could play 9 holes with just a 3-iron. Just take out this old blade 3-iron, 1 club in the bag, you know, hit all our putts, chips, any bunker shots, that sort of thing with this guy. Could be fun. It would probably be very difficult, right? There's a reason I don't have this 3-iron or a 4-iron in the bag, because it is very, very tiny and, you know, almost like a butter knife, right? You could find yourself in some really tricky spots trying to get out of a bunker or play out of some heavy rough. Don't change your shoes when learning how to putt. You'll mess up your system. That is good advice, I think. These are the shoes that I love it. Next time you golf, wear an orange t-shirt and trousers. You might get people wanting your autograph. Do it. 1 club. I love it. Nice iron, looks easy to hit. Yeah. What do you think you would score? Good question, Shane. I think I would probably shoot 4 over par, 5 over par for 9 holes. I know without the beard, I don't think Tommy Fleetwood's not going to be my doppelganger anymore. It is funny now, guys, how every single short I post, it seems like there's a comment saying, is this Tommy Fleetwood? Are you Tommy Fleetwood? If only my swing was as good as his, huh, guys? I think maybe Wednesday, Shane, I'm going to go film it. So you guys will have to wait till the video comes out to find out how we did. But maybe we can give some hints relative to that target number of like maybe 5 over par. Nice. Pretty automatic right now, guys. We're just aiming it. Letting the putter do its thing. That ball's coming out on line, going right in the center of the hole. Boom. Oh, short. You don't want to leave your 5-footers short. Garrett says, I'm about to get a cup and putt in my living room. Whatever you got to do. Right? Get yourself a little gate set up maybe. Start working on start line. No. Just grazed that left ball bearing there. Putting is always a good pastime. If Phil Mickelson had won a major with right-handed clubs, would that have made him the greatest ever? You're saying if he had won a major with both right-handed and left-handed clubs? I think it would be very impressive, but I don't think that would make it... I wouldn't put him ahead of, you know, like Jack or Tiger simply because he accomplished that. but it would be pretty insane. Like a Shohei Ohtani of golf. You know, hit and pitch, play righty and lefty. Garrett says, I left a 5-footer short on the course yesterday. That's funny. You would, Paul? Put him number 1 ever, just simply for winning righty and lefty? I mean, it would be very insane, right? To be good enough to win a major, you know, playing with your dominant hand, let alone doing it the other way as well. When you miss a putt on the course, is it from reading the green wrong or from something else? Good question, Moto King. There's a variety, of factors. There'll be times when I know, like, you know, hey, that one came off the face left, or I didn't hit it exactly where I wanted to. And sometimes you miss putts that way to be like, oh, you know, if I had hit it straight instead of pulling it or pushing it, it might have had a chance to go in. So that's user error. There are times where you hit the putt exactly where you wanted to, and it just breaks more or less than you thought. That certainly can happen. And then let's not forget that golf is played outside on a living surface. The grass is constantly being walked on, and, you know, the wind's being blown. So, you know, putting is just hard. It's very difficult to roll this tiny ball into a 4-inch hole in the ground when you're outside, you know, in those kinds of conditions. You know, there's a reason why on tour, the 50-50 mark is 8 feet. You know, they're only making half of those 8-footers. It's just hard. You gotta, you know, learn how to get your approach putts as close as possible and then be really solid inside of 5 feet. I do wish there was more discourse around putting strategy, because there's so much swing instruction, course management, but nobody really talks about, with the exception really of Scott Fawcett, in my opinion, and maybe John Sherman a little bit, this idea of approach putting and then, you know, short putts, right, inside of 10 feet, and understanding how the strokes gain works, and you know, what is our objective? So many variables, but you're doing very great with practice. Thanks very much. It's mostly you know, this also helps with confidence, guys. You know, when I know, say I have a 5-foot putt that breaks a lot and it's downhill and, you know, it's late in the round, you really want to make it. I'm not out there thinking about, well, is the ball going to come out right or left of where I'm aimed? I've done the work. I know, because I've hit so many putts in here and I practice with feedback, that I've developed a putting stroke that is very, very solid and consistent at starting the ball on my intended line. So as long as I read the putt correctly and hit it the right speed, I don't have to worry about that third variable. And of course, I'm still going to hit putts and hit them offline. But from a confidence and performance perspective, it's one less thing to be worried about out there. Putting is face and pace control. Totally. Totally. There's been some really interesting videos going around about guys, you know, with a chalk line or a string line, you know, hitting putts, and they'll like take it way inside and across, or, you know, outside and slice it. But if the face is pointed on line, that's like 90% of where the putt's going to start. So as long as that face is square at the moment of impact, and you start the ball, you know, where you want to, it does seem like that matters a lot more than path, which is not to suggest that the path doesn't matter, right? It just means that face direction is of paramount importance. You know, can you aim the face, and then can you hit the putt where you've aimed? For the most part, well said, Shane. Boom. Like, first tennis game on TV, Pong wasn't it. Boom. Here we go. Pretty excited to make dinner here in a little bit. We're going to have some tacos. The only thing better than Taco Tuesday is Taco Monday. Love to see it. Are you using practice balls or same ones you use on the course? These are just shag balls. These come out of our shag bag den caddy right there. So there's a whole mess of different golf balls. Do you line your ball up on the course? I started doing that the past year. It's helped tremendously. Also switched to a spider. Gary's having meatballs and potatoes. That sounds great. Moto King says my wife is making tacos also. Beautiful. I just love tacos, guys. It's such a beautiful meal. Self-contained and delicious at the same time. I used to use the line on the ball, Garrett, and I don't anymore. Do you use aim point? I do use aim point as part of my process. I think it, again, like I was saying about, confidence and removing variables. I have no illusions that I'm extremely good at aim point, or that I'm even, doing it correctly 100% of the time. But it is pretty straightforward to teach yourself, right? You just get a level. You can even use the one in your phone, and you set it down on the green, and you start practicing. Okay, what does a 1%, 2%, or 3% slope feel like? And very quickly, you'll start to identify, like, okay, I can feel a little bit, of pressure in one side or the other, and that's maybe a 1. And then there's like a medium one that's like, okay, that's more like 2. And then if you're really on a slope, you'll feel like 3. And very, very rarely are you going to be on a, more than a 3 or 4 degree slope on the golf course. But like I was saying, once you learn how to do it, it's just about confidence, right? I pick the spot, and that's where I'm aimed. I'm not second guessing it. I'm not saying, well, what if it's a little more or a little less or this or that, right? I just, I read the putt. The system tells me where to aim, and that's where I aim. And a lot of times, I think just having that degree of freedom and, letting myself respond to what I'm seeing, I find putts are going in. It's a pretty straightforward system once you understand the basics. Same here, yes. What do fish smoke? I don't know. Hopefully they don't smoke at all. Cigarettes are bad for you. I should know. I tried. It took me at least a dozen attempts to quit nicotine, guys. In the package where it says nicotine is an addictive chemical, they're just not kidding. They're like, it's not... They're just not kidding around, right? It is a very addictive chemical. And I'm coming up on like 1,500 days since I last used nicotine. But yeah, that was a beast of a thing to try to unhook my brain from. Oh, because guys, similarly to alcohol, we've talked about this before, it's so, accessible. It's largely socially acceptable. It doesn't mean that these aren't, drugs that have consequences. And it was actually my dentist. I was at the dentist and he was like, I was probably doing a can a day of Zyn. And that was after years of, I smoked a little in college, used chewing tobacco, in high school. And he was like, dude, I'm not sending you today, but if you come back in 6 months and it still looks like this inside your mouth, then you got to go get a biopsy because it's headed towards, something that's not going to be good. And that was really the last thing I needed to hear. I was like, okay, we got to find a way to get off of it. Seaweed. That's very funny, Paul. How can you miss these? We don't miss very many of them, but we're working on start line back here with the gate setup. So it can be a little hard to see, I know, but working on developing a skill that is even more precise than just did we get it into the hole down there, right? But we have a very narrow opening here between these ball bearings, and that's really the skill that we're working on developing here. Love to see it. Appreciate you guys all taking some time to hang out on the stream here on a Monday afternoon or evening, depending on where in the world you may be. Like I was saying before, guys, it's very crazy to me how much support and traction there's been on the channel recently. And it's all thanks to you guys. Couldn't do it without you. I could yell into the void, but if you guys, didn't take the time to share the videos and comment and subscribe, that's all it would be, right? Is yelling into the void. So it is a two-way street in more ways than I think people realize. And I'm just very grateful for all the support and everybody who, time after time after time keeps showing up to these live streams and, showing support, trying to gas me up and get excited to keep making content that you guys enjoy. So, hey, Moto King, thanks for being here, my dude. I am also about to wrap up here. Hey, Pods Play Golf. What's up, my dude? Thanks for being here. Cammy says, you learn more in failure than victory. You never really lose. It's only winning or learning. So try to learn from wins when you can too, guys. Very well said, Cammy. I love that attitude. I like to, to think about it in terms of you can never fail if you don't give up, right? You haven't succeeded yet, but as long as you're still trying, then you haven't failed. And I really firmly believe that, that failure is the act of giving up, not did you achieve success or not. What's your handicap? Right now we're at 1.3 index, guys. Gonna be working hard next year to get that back down to 0. You got that right, Cammy, totally. And accept what you cannot change. Well said, Shane. I think I just made a video that had a similar sentiment. Love it. Really, really in a good rhythm with the stroke, guys. Michigan Man said, what's up, John? I've been hitting the driver well lately, but struggling a little with early extension. Any quick swing thoughts or tips? Thanks. Yeah, so I would tell you that in my experience and in trying to fix this very same problem in my own swing, that the early extension is almost always a symptom, right, or a chain reaction, downstream effect of something else, right? It's either, your swing getting a little steep or, from the top applying a lot of right hand pressure, right, that's going to, push the club out and steepen it. So you got to tilt and extend to get back to the ball. The best drills that I found are trying to, really just let that club almost fall in space, feel like it's pausing at the top for a brief moment, right? Like everything almost stops moving and then you swing through, right? It makes it much more difficult to extend when you're, sequencing correctly. So if you can learn how to let that club just almost sink down for a brief second while everything changes direction. glad we share these perspectives, guys. Always moving forward. Well said, Cami. Right? And I think that's what I'm so encouraged by about this community we're building is it resonates with the same kinds of people, right? People who are excited to improve themselves, whether it's golf or life or, you know, just however, whatever it looks like in your own life to improve. You know, I'm really happy with that. That's the, you know, community and the vibe that we're building. Because it's not for everybody, right? Some people are perfectly happy to just say, I'm going to do the same thing and stay where I'm at and, you know, just tread water, right? We're not making any progress. We're just hanging out and that's fine. And that's totally okay, guys. Not everybody needs to be, you know, like what's the next thing? How can we keep getting better? And it's interesting. I was listening to, you know, a clip where somebody was talking about, you know, how often people in recovery view it as a good thing, right? In terms of that, you know, without the experience of recovery, you know, it's much harder sometimes to push yourself and learn how to change and grow. And I certainly, to some extent, fall in that category. You know, I started my journey not actually with sobriety, but with, you know, weight loss. So very Sigma. Is Sigma good or bad? Successful, popular, and independent man who operates outside traditional social hierarchies. Oh, great. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you agree because I've had to educate some people on the stream in the past, but yeah, totally, dude. It's crazy that we are living in a time when people have so successfully been convinced that their problems are because of immigrants and poor people and not because of, you know, the oligarchy class and you know, the misappropriation of resources. It's going to be fascinating for historians to look back and say, how were people so easily convinced to vote and act in ways that are not in their best interest, right? The fact that more and more money is being spent trying to go kidnap people off the street, that isn't making life easier for everyday people, right? You know, you're marginalizing and terrorizing a certain group and you're not making things better for anybody else. So it's all awful. You know, I'm glad that I have this platform to talk about it because I feel strongly that just a tiny amount of empathy would go such a long way in our current world. And it really seems to be lacking, right? This idea that you could tell someone who has just risked their life walking across the desert to escape from terror or, you know, threat of being murdered, that person isn't the kind of person you want in our country. Like, what are we talking about? Do you know like the sheer balls and courage that it would take to make that choice and say, I'm going to risk my life, you know, give every dollar I have, every penny, to hopefully, you know, successfully cross this desert at great risk to my own safety to then go work hard and try to make a living for myself somewhere else. Like, those are the people we want. Like, when did that change? I mean, the America that I grew up being taught about was one where we're a melting pot and we're proud of that, right? That is a net benefit to our society, to our country. And the fact that we've gotten so far away from that is really, really tough. Do you have Topgolf nearby? Yeah. So I go try putting some more. There you go. Love the shirt. Thanks, Michigan man. Hello from the Netherlands. What's up, Emmanuel? I have a very close friend who lives in Zwanenburg, just outside Amsterdam, who very close with, so I love it there. You're cooked, they are a drain. Well, I think you're just maybe need, you know, to learn some more facts about how these things actually work. There is a lot of propaganda out there that is trying to convince people of that fact. So, and again, that's not your fault, right? Everybody is susceptible to some amount of propaganda and, you know, cultural influence, but that doesn't change the reality that the facts say that simply isn't true. It's not a new human habit. It's been happening throughout our civilization. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Joe, right? The fact that, we just decided one day that there was going to be an imaginary line in the ground that would stop human migration, which has been happening for as long as there's been humans, right? And I love this point because it really reinforces the fact that we are all in that group, right? If you are, a white American, you're not from here. If you have European ancestors, guess what's not in America? Europe. It's over there, right? Our ancestors came here from somewhere else and, colonized this place. We are immigrants just like the immigrants are today, right? It's not different. We look back with pride, right? My family has deep Irish roots, and those people were forced to come here because of a man-made famine, during British occupation. How could I not empathize with people who are trying to escape similar things to make a better life for themselves, right? My ancestors did it, and we look back with pride. Look how hard it was, all the hardships they went through. It's not different, guys. It's just, our ancestors did it 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and there's people still making the same choice now. They're not different things. I played Trump Aberdeen and left a big turd in the men's locker room. It's a small gesture, but that's my way. Nice, very nice. My 8-year-old daughter cussed her mom out today in retaliation for taking away her iPad privileges. Specifically said, "Mom, you're such a B. How do I, as her father, respond appropriately?" Well, I don't have kids yet. We're hoping to adopt kids at some point. So I don't feel particularly qualified to answer your question, but I would, I always think it's crazy, and the way I was brought up too, where we don't culturally treat children like they're going to someday be adults, like they're real people almost. Like, oh, you turn 18 and then you become a real person. Like, we know that all children are going to become adults, right? I think you could just have a pretty, transparent discussion with her and say, hey, what you said isn't polite. It would be considered rude. You certainly wouldn't want to speak to somebody you care about that way, like your mother. And just explain, like, that's not acceptable behavior. There's ways that adults talk that you might have heard that isn't appropriate or polite. But I'm not an expert. I think, my bias is always towards transparency and just speaking plainly, right? And just say, hey, that behavior is not acceptable. There might be consequences. We can talk about those or, discuss what that might look like. But here's why, right? I think that would be so much more effective than the way I was raised, which is I say jump, you say how high, I'm your father, so you have to do what I say. It never made sense to me, right? And I have such a resentment towards arbitrary authority as a result of it, I think. Like, if your kid's 8, they know how to speak, right? She knows how to cuss, presumably she could understand if you spoke to her almost like an adult and said, hey, that was really uncool. People don't talk to each other that way. And certainly, not in the circumstances that you're describing, right? Obviously there's a time and a place to talk to people that way, right? If they're behaving badly enough in a public setting and you need to put them in their place. But those moments are very few and far between. And certainly not like a setting where a 8-year-old person would be in charge of doing that. Shane said, sounds to me like it made you a pretty good person though, John. Well, I appreciate you saying that, Shane. Certainly not perfect, guys, but I think, a little bit of empathy goes a long way, and trying to understand that people are just people, right? They might be children, they might be old, but people for the most part are just people. They have the same dreams and fears that we all have, right? There's a word I really like. I think it's German, maybe I should get this right, called Sonder, S-O-N-D-E-R, and it's basically describing the feeling of wonder or amazement that you experience when you realize that everyone else around you has the same depth of life, right? Relationships and career goals and fears, things to keep them up at night. They all have the same, comprehensively deep and engaging human experience that you're having, right? Which is why I find it so hard to, when we villainize people, right? I'm wearing that, like, I firmly believe that that places are better off when, they have a variety of perspectives. And people are just people, no matter where you are. She knows how to use the cuss word, so she understands. Good point, Max. Back in from eating my tacos. I really enjoy these live streams. Thanks very much, Moto King. I tell her she sounds like a hairy chewing gum. That's funny. I'm glad you guys enjoy hanging out and listen to me rant and yammer about these things, but I certainly don't lack for a perspective, right? I have opinions about things, and I'm comfortable telling people what those opinions are and why I think those things. And, sometimes like what in my personal life or background or experience has informed those decisions, right? Here's an easy example. Growing up as an American, right, there's tons and tons of anti-Muslim propaganda, right? Especially after 9/11. There's just a lot of vitriol, and it's not pervasive, it's not everywhere, but that does exist, right? And a truly radicalizing experience for me was going to Egypt and experiencing that culture and seeing just the generosity and kindness and hospitality that people who have nothing can still generate, right? And understanding that they're just people just like us, right? Everybody's just trying to get through the day and have basic security and shelter and food for their family. Moto King said, love the shirt, got a lot to say about that. Paul said, rant away, bud. Well, I appreciate you guys giving me an audience. We all need to respect others' opinions. Good point. Where did you grow up? All over, because of growing up in a military household, but mostly in the Northeast, outside Boston. Boom. Still rolling putts. You should try out for Big Break. That's an interesting idea, Shane. I'm definitely intrigued by that idea. I don't know what the audition process looks like or how good of a golfer you need to be, but it would be a super fun experience. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you saw that I was super, super pumped when that news dropped as somebody who grew up watching Big Break and loves golf. Paul said, no other countries get favoritism. Well said. It's Baseball Guy. Changed my name. Keep up the great videos, bro. Golf has been helping so much with my anxiety and depression, and I'm not scared to admit it. That's amazing, Fat Boy Golf. I appreciate you coming to, share your perspective, and you shouldn't be afraid of saying that, right? It's okay to say, hey, anxiety and depression is something I struggle with. I've said that a bunch. You guys have heard me say that. Gayest t-shirt ever. Well, that could be okay. I know lots of cool gay folks. So if you meant to use that word disparagingly, then it's going to fall on deaf ears here. I don't know if you don't, personally know, gay folks or trans folks, it's hard to understand the extent to which, like, these kinds of minor comments are, like, still hurtful, right? It's still damaging. And, I guess we can give James one more chance, but I really have such little tolerance for, continuing to marginalize people who are already having a hard time, right? You know, just simply by being who you are, there are people who are going to hate you. And that's not a reality that a lot of people have to live with. So, you know, the least you can do is not make it worse. Yeah. So that's what it looks like when you have to deal with those kinds of people. But again, they're out there. You try to show some compassion, but at the same time, like, just make it clear there's basically zero tolerance for any amount of that. And it's not a democracy, right? This is my live stream. I'm going to moderate it the way I see fit. You know, we're going to be committed to making this a community where people feel safe and comfortable, you know, expressing themselves, talking about things that are hard. So, you know, again, it's temporary minor interruptions, but it's not going to exist here, guys. So, I appreciate you guys, you know, having my back and, you know, continuing to create the community that we want to create. Yeah, see, love this. Like, take a hike, get a life. Love you guys. Thank you so much. It's hard to admit for big, tough guys sometimes. Nothing better than talking with my wife with a little crying, realizing it's going to be okay, bro. It's totally okay, fat boy. Right? I'm a, you know, heavily tattooed guy who works out, you know, talks loud. I have a big, loud voice. And I certainly understand that tension between, like, you know, can I be, you know, sensitive and emotional while also, like, presenting myself this way? It is hard, but that's what we're doing together, right? Is normalizing these conversations. You guys heard me crying on the live stream the other day. I'm a 31-year-old man, and I was just softly weeping, being sad, thinking about having, you know, lost my grandfather earlier this year. And that's totally okay, right? It's normal to be sad about things like that. That means you're making progress. Haters will hate. Oh, very cool. Tony says, just scrolling and found you. Do you take questions? Yeah, sure. Joe, there's always room for improvement in your golf game. Don't worry about it. Keep playing. Oh, did I miss a comment from Joe? Oh, Joe said, just shot 10 over through 9 this evening. Short game could be better. That's okay. There's always something you can take away or, you know, learn from anytime you get out on the golf course, right? Whether it's, you know, your mental game, staying more focused, or, you know, identifying something. Like you said, you already know your short game needs work. You know more, you have more information than you did 2 hours ago when you played, before you played. He does, Tony. Oh, yep, totally. Respect that you were willing to give him a chance and show compassion. Fair play. Thanks, Cammy. Hey, Gunner's here. What's up, Gunner? Gunner's on a quest to get back to a single-digit handicap. And I think he's got a pretty substantial bet with his brother, if I'm not mistaken. Joe said, thanks, bud. You're welcome, Joe. You are very welcome. I think what sometimes is hard for people like James to understand, you know, who they see or hear something about me that they don't like, and they're like, well, he's not on the same team as me, and that feels threatening to them somehow. I think what they fail to understand is, like, I still want good things for that guy, right? I still want him to have the things that I think we should all have, you know, safety and security and free and fair elections and access to affordable housing, like all these things that are, you know, important. He may not, you know, like the way I'm presenting it, but I still want what's best for him. And I still think he's being led astray, right? He's been propagandized or misled in a very intentional way by people who have bad motives. That doesn't make it his fault that happened, but it is your fault if you don't recognize that and respond to it and engage with the empathy and compassion that people are showing you. Gunner says, got to the course again today, feeling good, amazing. This may be personal, but do you have a therapist or medication? Both. Both. New to this anxiety stuff, and it truly does suck. Yeah, it can be really, really hard, my dude. I'm not going to ever tell you. You guys have seen this in my videos, right? I talk about hard things that, like sobriety and dealing with depression and anxiety, and losing a bunch of weight, right? I used to be 230 pounds and really miserable as a functioning alcoholic. And I'm not anymore, right? But I'm never going to tell you that doing those things is easy. It's not easy. It's much easier to stay where you're at, right? Think about, the momentum or the energy required, to get past a certain threshold, right? This is a concept in nature that's very pervasive. It required a lot of energy and a lot of sacrifice, and changes in a lot of ways. But it is possible. That's what I want people to understand. If you're struggling with whether it's mental health or substances, like a lot of these things that I have personal experience with, it is possible to have your life look different, right? The version of me that exists today would have been unfathomable to me 5 years ago. If you had told me, 5 years ago, like, hey, this is what your life is going to look like. You're going to be sober and married and own a house and have done all these great things, I'd be like, no shot, dude. I just want to go to the bar and not think about my problems and just feel nothing instead of, doing some work on myself. But at some point, I just started making different choices. So again, it's not easy, but it is possible. And to answer your question directly, Fat Boy, yes, I take anxiety medication on a daily basis and I see a therapist. I'm going tomorrow. I'm pretty excited about it. 2 weeks ago was really rough. I was in a pretty bad place. I had a really good therapy session and it helped kind of kickstart some things, gave me some small, ideas or tools that I can employ. And 2 weeks later, I'm like in a way different spot. I just feel much more excited about getting up in the morning. It's hard when you just see content, right? I'm putting out videos and I'm playing golf or whatever, but there was a stretch a couple weeks ago, guys, where I was really having a tough time. Just like apathetic, didn't want to get out of bed. It looks different for everybody, but that's for me what depression looks like. It's like, oh, I'll just, push things off. It doesn't have to happen right now. I'll just lay in bed, because just that crippling feeling of like you're carrying around a weighted blanket like all the time, right? Like you're just being weighed down by the world, is how I describe it. It sucks. It really sucks to feel that way. But I also know that I, was more resilient to it and I came out of that episode faster because I've done years and years of therapy and I exercise and I built these tools for myself. But that's all they are, right? They're just tools. So hopefully that helps with some perspective, Fat Boy. I'm a lefty, but always batted right. Played lefty golf for 5 years, but going back to righty because I feel like in my gut I should be a righty. Plus, I feel more powerful as a righty. Thoughts? Well, it is unusual, Tony, I would tell you. I don't know how far along in your golf journey you are, but you don't hear very frequently about people deciding to play a certain way for a number of years and then switching, but you could certainly do it. If you feel more comfortable swinging right-handed, then you definitely can. Or he's projecting his own insecurities on others. Well said, Joe. Going through it also. Yeah, see guys, these are not uncommon experiences, right? Everybody gets sad. Everybody isn't at their best all the time, right? That's why I think it's so important that we talk about these things, right? Why should you feel awkward or stigmatized for having a bad mental health day? It's no different than getting a cold and having the flu and not wanting to go to work, right? People, just don't feel well. And that can be mental health too. So I think it's so important that we openly talk about these things because of that social stigma and trying to get away from that. Because I remember the first time I had a friend ask me, he just said, hey man, how's your mental health? I was like, whoa, like, can you even ask somebody that, especially as a dude? Like dudes don't talk to each other that way. And so I know that stigma exists because I experienced it, right? I felt that. That was like, oh, this feels awkward and weird, but it doesn't have to, right? And that's somebody who I've, a close friend who I've known for a long time and, really opened a door for me to say, like, okay, we can just start talking about these things and asking each other how we're doing. And it's something I try to do with my friends and, just have a sense of what's going on in their life and check in on them, right? It can be as simple as a quick text message, say, hey, I was just thinking about you. Hope everything's okay, right? It doesn't have to be this like, huge emotional movie scene type of moment. That's not what it looks like in day-to-day life, right? It's just, hey, I'm here for you if you need me. Or, you know, I know you got some stuff going on. I'm here to listen if you need somebody to talk to, right? These are easy things that we can do to, you know, to try to change that stigma. Not saying it doesn't suck, because it does. Everyone has some degree of anxiety and depression. It's a matter of coping skills and changing your thinking. Well said, Joe. I'm 35. When I had my 3-year-old, I got anxiety that slowly progressed, and I'm working on managing. I totally get it. That can definitely be, you know, a huge change in your life. Smokey says, every day is a gift. Nature is the best cure. Well said, Smokey. Hey, C. Rich is here. My guy C. Rich has been here since, oh, I don't know, 500 subs maybe? You know, you and Paul and Adventure Boys. I just seen your video where you posted your glow up. Didn't even realize it was you for a second. Oh, that is a nice compliment, Gunner. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? When I say that that version of me that you see in those pictures, like, couldn't comprehend the version that you see in front of you now, right? It just was so far away from my reality. And, you know, these things take time. They take work. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to be hard, but it's still worth it. I'm still a much happier, healthier, more empathetic, you know, better person because I did all that work. And that's why this idea of sharing some of that knowledge or wisdom with you guys is what is so important for me about using this platform and you know, building a platform around talking about these things. Because I've been through them. And if there's, you know, experience that I've had, I'm not happy that I went through that thing. It's not like, oh, thank God I was an alcoholic and I had to get sober. Like, but that is an experience that I had. That is my reality. So if there are things from that experience that I can share and articulate with other people who may or may not be struggling, then that's worth it to me, right? That is, you know, some amount of service of using my experience for good. And it's really why I'm so committed to trying to do this as much as I can. And, you know, I would love someday to be able to make content full time, guys. When I started, I didn't really articulate that. I wasn't sure how this would go, but to know that talking about these things is having real tangible benefits for people in their own lives, is everything I could have ever hoped for, right? To feel like I'm using that experience to give back and hopefully make things a little bit easier for other people. Don't know how valuable life truly is until you see a small version of yourself running around. Yeah, I can't imagine, Fat Boy. Keep up the hard work and positive vibes. Thanks so much, Quiver. Golf is a good therapy session. Well said, Shane. Cowboys Cardinals tonight. Yes. I don't know. It's such a weird... I know the Cardinals have not been very good this year, but I'm never convinced that Dallas is very good until they like are in the NFC Championship game, I guess. If you don't mind me asking, what was the moment or realization that change had to happen with your life? It's a great question. I am very fortunate in a lot of ways, right? As somebody who, you know, drank for a long time, I didn't have the traditional like rock bottom, you know, I'm in a jail cell or I got a DUI or, you know, I got fired from my job. I didn't have any of those experiences. And unfortunately, because I was able to drink so much and function at a high level, right? I had a really high octane career. I had relationships, right? You know, I was on the outside, everything was going fine, right? But I was able to just, you know, drink a lot and function. So that almost prolonged it to some extent. So to answer your question, Moto King, I don't know if there's like a specific moment or a day where I was like, things have to change. It sort of just started, you know, one step at a time, right? It started with trying to get in shape, right? I'm a relatively tall guy, you know, but I'm not big enough to be 230 pounds. So I was really overweight and out of shape. And I just said, like, it's impacting my golf. It was impacting my health, right? I had, you know, digestive issues and sleep apnea and like all, you know, kind of traditional, like overweight person stuff. So that was the first one, but I was still drinking throughout that, you know, whole experience. I lost like 65 pounds in 9 months. And I lost like almost 30 pounds in the first month. So I do have that ability or that like brain chemistry to just flip a switch and say like, okay, I decided I'm going to lose weight and we're just going to lose it all right now. similar to drinking. I just said, I'm not drinking anymore, and I just quit. Which I learned later can have health impacts or side effects, right? If you're drinking a lot and then you stop, you can have seizures and health issues. So definitely, I always tell people, I'm not a doctor. If you're going to stop drinking and you're a heavy drinker, talk to your doctor. There's no shame in calling your doctor and saying, hey, I want to make a change for the better. Can you help me? 10 out of 10 times, they're going to say, yes, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do, right? So just, be careful when you are thinking about making these changes. There can be implications. It's a toss-up who wins. I totally agree. Another friend from Korea. Hello. I don't know what your background is, but for me, church, Christ, and the Bible is my therapy. I think that can be a great tool for lots of people, guys. I'll share, I grew up, somewhat intensely in the Catholic Church, and am not anymore. But, I went to Catholic high school. So I'm very familiar with a specific part of that culture. My grandfather was a proud Irish Catholic. But it's not, the way that I experience that part of myself, right? The spiritual part now. But it's obviously a great tool for millions and millions of people. So who am I to tell you, what brings you comfort or not? 30 pounds in a month is insane. Yeah, it probably was a little insane in hindsight. Thanks for sharing and let us know how to make a better life. Glad to hear you're on a journey for your family and friends. Yeah. What are some tips to get better at golf? Great question, Everett. You got to work on impact. As far as ball striking goes, you got to learn how to hit the center of the club face. I really recommend doing it at slow speed. Right? So learn how to hit the center of the club with, little 40, 50% type of swings. Joe said, happy for you though. Kudos for keeping it off. Thanks so much, Joe. I thought the same thing. Yeah, I just, I think it would be difficult for me now. I mean, so much of my excess caloric intake was alcohol, right? So it's crazy when you stop drinking how it seems like weight will just fall off. But you don't realize when you're drinking, 6-7 days a week, that it's a lot of calories. Roger Goodell looking good. Yeah, I know. Poor bastard. Just universally hated. This might be personal, but do you consider yourself to be a Christian or do you still go to church? I don't go to church, and I don't think I would self-describe that way. I think if anything, I would describe myself as agnostic. I certainly believe that, the universe or there is something that is, connects all of us. But I don't, in my day-to-day life, experience it in a way that relates to the Bible or going to church. It's just not part of my experience. But I definitely do have that moment, when you're just staring up at the night sky or you're out in nature and you're like, wow, this is insane that we're here, on this rock floating around in space, and, that this combination of molecules, came together to form what is me, and I can, understand myself and my existence. That to me is a crazy thing. Is it true your wrist should be straight or pointed outwards on the downswing? I need to send you a video of my swing. Yeah, go to Instagram, fat boy. Follow me on Instagram, John_Young_golf. And you can DM me your swing and I'll be happy to take a look. I bet you were saving lots of money from not drinking. Joe said, happy to be part of this community. Gonna jump though. Thanks for being here, Joe. Thanks for subscribing. If you guys are enjoying hanging out and want to hit that subscribe button, that's awesome. So I'm gonna look. Says I'm 35, I don't have Instagram. You're not that old, bro. Come on. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I don't have Instagram. So Moto King, to answer your question, my app, right, the I Am Sober app, when I first set it up, I put in how much I was, spending. And it says in the last almost 5 years since I quit drinking, at the previous run rate, I've saved more than $25,000 since I quit drinking, which is insane. Lucas says, brand new to golf, tried to drive a ball off the tee for the first time, hit the grass almost every time. Tried to drive a ball off the tee for the first time, hit the grass almost every time. That's okay, Lucas, right? It's going to take a lot of time and practice to learn how to consistently hit that golf ball where you want to. Thanks for letting me know. I'll keep you in my prayers. Thanks for thinking of me, Gunner. Your old Joe. Don't worry, Lucas. My first experience was very similar. Yeah, me too. I mean, I didn't like wake up and be a good golfer. I've spent thousands of hours practicing. 25K is crazy. Yeah. I bought a Ghost golf bag, expensive ass bag. Those are nice. I've heard good things about those. Whoa. I was supposed to start making dinner some time ago, but that's what happens sometimes, guys. You know, we get on a rant or a certain topic and just time flies by as we're chatting and hanging out. But as I always say, guys, I'm incredibly grateful for all your support. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Although I think anybody who's still in here at this point has likely already done that. Boom. I like it. Very nicely made. Horrible to carry. Oh, that's good to know. Ooga booga, what are you having for dinner? Tacos. Yeah, Moto King knows. He already ate his dinner and came back. That's how long I've been yammering on and on for. All right, guys, let's roll one more putt. See if we can make it. And then it's time for tacos. Taco time. Me encanta los tacos. I still think you should try out for a big break. And if you do, I would definitely watch it. That's awesome, Shane. If you go straight to the cart and to your car, you're fine. If you want to carry, go ahead and go home. That's awesome. I also have a similarly, pretty heavy golf bag at the moment. It's not great for carrying, but thank you so much for checking out the stream, hanging out for so long, guys. Hit that like button. Hit a subscribe on there if you haven't already. And we'll be back tomorrow with another live stream. We'll see you then.